know, it'd be simpler if public safety
Still up there by then.
just had its own dedicated portion of sales tax. It'd be simpler that we just assume that involvement on setting that budget. What you get.
I'll tell this joke later.
Now, of course,
Good evening and welcome to the City Council special meeting of Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. First item on the agenda is discussion regarding the possible sale and or development of real property on the 100 block of West Grove Street. Mr. Pirrant.
All right, I'm gonna keep it pretty brief before the executive session. So just a very brief update. I think someone or many of you wanted an update on just what the status of this RFP is. So I'm just gonna kind of do a very general overview of where we're at in the process and where we have to go from here. If you remember, we did this RFP was regarding the sale and redevelopment of the two parcels on Gray Street. They're right across the street from each other. It's right next to the railroad tracks on James Garner. The south assemblage is just a vacant lot, and then the north assemblage, that is currently where the city shelter is located. And then there's also the parcel behind it. There's an alley that runs through it, and that has been sort of vacant commercial for quite a while. And the goal was, I think, to really seek a development that was consistent with council's visions for Center City, really be a, maybe an example of Center City form-based code and what it could be done, and hopefully spur some development in that area. So here's the timeline and where we're kind of at right now. In September, we issued that RFP requesting proposals for redevelopment. In November, we did get a proposal back, just this one, and it was something that we thought was in line with what you guys were expecting. I won't go today into specifics because we haven't had a chance to meet with the conditional redeveloper, but it's along the lines of mixed use multifamily. So I think that's a lot of what council was wanting. So we were happy with that. We scored that proposal in December, and then in January we selected that developer as the conditional redeveloper. And from this point, where we go is, and this will be next month, we have a meeting set. We'll begin contract negotiation with that developer in order to work out the specifics of an agreement between the city and that developer, likely, setting forth, that it's going to be developed in the way that we anticipate, and it's not going to turn around and be something totally different. And then also, all the other stuff that you would get with the purchase and sale agreement. So it's the development portion that'll be a little more involved, just to make sure that the city's getting what it's bargaining for. So, and then
Anthony, if you could show the picture with the aerial, and I had a question. So the alleyway on the north assemblage, I when I see that space on the map, and I think about other alleys around central Norman, I would assume on the map, and I'm looking at Mr. Sturts, that's probably got some, it's probably, city owns it fee title. It may have served businesses along that north assemblage, and that may have been where they received inventory, or we maybe had trash service back there or something. If council was interested, it's a conversation we could have. That alleyway may or may not be of service to new development there. And should the developer say, yeah, I don't have any use for the alley, if council would let us entertain, well, maybe part of the deal is council would abandon the alleyway and it's filled up. The post office has loading docks on the north side of the post office. And I'm not sure a whole lot of public access behind that development would be of value, but I think if council's okay with it, we would engage the developer in that conversation too, because it may be weird not to include it.
And then, so you're saying from the line that's there on the north assemblage going north to the next pink area
Yeah, and then the strip that goes
on the side.
west and T-bones kind of into the side of the library.
Were there any renderings or maybe a list of what they were wanting to do in that RFP that you can share?
Not like a part of this presentation. I would prefer to save any of those formal details until we actually like can nail down with an agreement what that's going to be. I don't want to necessarily promise anything that we can't deliver, but I think that you know, in terms of that is what we were going to hope to bring you as like in terms of like an agreement and something that we can give you with specific details. This is what we are agreeing to, and then that will be kind of the benchmark that we'll be setting. And so I want to make sure that anything we bring you and then the public is something that we can say for certainty that we're confident we will get.
In spring or after spring?
So looking back at the timeline, in February is when we'll begin the contract negotiations with that conditional redeveloper. There's a couple of different ways that this can go, we're thinking, and it just depends on, you know, how we structure it. And, you know, I think that depending on how that goes, we could do it like, because it's already kind of parceled out. If it's easier to do the south one first, maybe we can do that. We can do it in phases. It just depends, and that's just a conversation that will be a part of the discussion that we have with that developer. I think that the sooner that we can, you know, move forward on the redevelopment, the better from everyone's perspective. So I think that's the goal in mind, I think, as we're having these discussions.
And I would say to that, when you're talking to the developer, phases, I think, make a lot of sense, just to get some things started and have, you know, allow for some time for other things to maybe organically evolve in line with what they're thinking for some of these other parts.
And could be, yeah, two separate timelines, one for the north and one for the south. And if one side gets to go fast and council's comfortable with going fast on the vacant lot, then it's probably cleaner.
Let me ask a question first. Does anybody object to vacating those alleys?
And keep in mind, in the RFP, we explicitly said, feel free to assume the alley would be vacated in your proposals. So and I think the other half of that alley that used to be there was vacated previously for the post office. So we kind of anticipated that being the case.
Yes, sir.
I was just curious if the two properties, the north and south assemblies, were tied together, or if it was a pick one, take it or leave it, all kind of.
The way that the RFP was drafted is you can, you know, submit a proposal for one, for the other, both at the same time. This was for both. So.
Awesome, thank you. And will we, as a council, get the opportunity to have some input on the contract before it, as we're having those negotiations?
Yeah, we'd bring you back in a study session, the draft purchase and sale agreement, make sure it checks all your boxes. And by then, we think the details would have been boiled down to some renderings, and you have a really good idea of knowing exactly what you're gonna get.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, and then once we are able to reach an agreement, and then that's the point where we would, you know, sell the property. So I think that's kind of the timeline, and again, that depends on the discussions with that redeveloper. So I think next step, like I said, it sounds like that's the direction we're getting. We're gonna seek to do that. We've already set up a meeting, and you know, hopefully once we're able to have those discussions, we can provide you with more detailed updates as we get them. And we can hopefully give you something a little bit more finished that you guys can sink your teeth into and, you know, run with, so.
Yes.
Is there a way where we could incentivize X amount of units be affordable by reducing the price of the property or anything like that?
There are probably multiple opportunities including efforts in the entitlements. What's the stuff currently zoned? The parking lot's probably just public space on a map. The stuff on the north side, I don't know if it's still zoned commercial from the old days or if we had rezoned that into public. I think it may be public now.
It's form-based code.
So you've got, there's a lot of puzzle pieces face up already, and it's just a matter of reaching that comfortable satisfaction on both party sides.
I would say we also have that urban design implementation plan work that is happening right now, which might be helpful for the redeveloper. And Center City TIF funds could be used to incentivize workforce and or affordable housing, sprinkling of units in there potentially. And it does say in the Center City Form-Based Code, one of the objectives is to provide multifamily, different types of housing, and also affordable.
And I don't think we spent much of that at all.
Well, we're waiting on the UDIP.
Are there any other questions? I think we kind of have our marching orders and I think we're just sticking with the same, so happy to, any other lasting questions?
We're excited.
Alrighty.
All right, we're not gonna discuss item number 2, and we're gonna go. Is